Welcome back to the High School B'Kiyas program. Today we're doing Tab and Aleph and Moed Katan. Today I have 7 points about the restrictions that the Mitzora, Menuda, and mourner have to deal with. The first one is about hair cutting, that the mourner, the person in Avelos, is not allowed to cut his hair. And we learn that from the Psukim of Aaron, and then we go on to the person excommunication and the Mitzora as well. And we continue on this path. We go about the obligation for them to wrap their heads. That applies to a mourner, and then we go on to the other two and analyze those in detail. The same thing with tefillin, that their mourner is not allowed to wear tefillin. In terms of greeting other people, a mourner is not supposed to greet people, and then we analyze the Menuda and Mitzora the same way. Learning Torah, a mourner is not supposed to learn Torah, and not supposed to do laundry, and he has an obligation to tear his clothing, and we fill in the details as we go through the Gemara. Here we go, 2 lines from the bottom of Yudal and Beis. Avel Asur B'Tispored. The mourner is forbidden from cutting his hair. How do we know that? We learned that from the story with Aaron's children that died. 2 of them died, and none of them, and 2 of them didn't, and Hashem told them, I don't want you to be mourning like everybody else. It says the Gemara, the proof is Hashem said, L'bnei Aaron, to the children of Aaron, L'roshechem al tifro, don't let your hair grow loose. Your hair go loose and leave it unkempt and unshaven, uncut. Rather, you should cut your hair and don't be like a mourner. But miklal, you see from here, that kuli alma also, for everybody else, the regular rule would be, in fact, that it's forbidden for a mourner to cut his hair. What do we say about the Menuda and the Mitzora? Our proceeds to bring us a proof. Tashma Menuda Mitzora Menuda Shemei Bezdin Sokolin Arona. We're going to give some more details about the Menuda, but what happens is very clear in the Bryce of black and white that the Menuda and the Mitzora have the same law as the Avel in this case, and they cannot cut their hair. Let me give some more details about the Menuda. For example, when he passed away, the Beis Din puts rocks on his coffin. And the Gemara explains what exactly that looked like. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Lo she'amdu alav galavanim ki al shel achan. Doesn't mean that they make a tremendous mound of rocks on his coffin. Rather, Ela Beis Din sholchin manichin emigdol la'arona. Rather, they put 1 rock on his coffin. The comparison to large pile rocks of Achan is in the days of Yehoshua. Achan took from the cherem, from the excommunicated property of Yericho that Yehoshua forbade everybody from, and it caused a tremendous tragedy in Klal Yisrael. Many people died, and therefore he was stoned, and they made a pile of stones on his upon his grave. So we learn from here the idea that any person that dies in excommunication, they put a rock on his grave. But for our purposes, we learn about the haircutting idea that it's the case that the Menuda and Mitzora cannot cut their hair. So now let's go on to wrapping their heads. An Avel, a mourner, says the Gemara, he must wrap his head. And we learn this from a story in Yechezkel. It's a very tragic story. Yechezkel, the Navi, was told to tell the Jewish people about the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, and to emphasize the sad emotions that they're supposed to have. Yechezkel had that his wife would pass away, and he was going to mourn for her and show for the Klal Yisrael what it was. He was going to do certain practice of mourning and certain practice of not of mourning, of what it means to suffer a tragedy and then basically not be able to mourn. And he was telling Klal Yisrael, you're going to have the tragic Beis HaMikdash be destroyed, and you're going to feel like I am, and you're not going to be able to have the words to cope with your tragedy. Now we're going to learn a lot of laws of mourning from the story of Yechezkel. So this idea about covering the head, we learn from Yechezkel because it says in Yechezkel, Lo ta'ateh al sfa'am, that you're not supposed to put a covering on your head. But you see from there, miklal dekuli alma mechayve. You see from Yechezkel that he was not supposed to act like a regular mourner. Everybody else who was mourning was supposed to wrap their head. Menuda ma'avativ rosh. What do we say about the menuda? Amar of Yosef Tashma. The menuda is as follows: The the tzaddikim, the certain people that would fast when there was no rain in Eretz Yisrael, they would continue to fast for months and months. They would fast every Monday and Thursday, 13 fasts. When no rain came for months, then they would act in a certain sense as though they were excommunicated from God. That Hashem didn't answer their tefillos and there's no rain still. So it says in this description of the tzaddikim, they would sit and mit'atfim, they would cover their heads as though they were excommunicated and as though they were mourners, until Hashem would shower mercy upon them. So don't you see that the menuda is supposed to cover his head? Amalei Abaye rejects this proof. Maybe it's different when a person is excommunicated to God. That's very, very serious, as opposed to the regular standard excommunication menuda we're talking about is to the rabbis, which isn't less serious, and maybe we don't have any proof about what the law is about head covering for them. Mitzorah, let's finish the pack about covering heads. Mahu bativat rosh. What do we say about Mitzorah? Tashma al rosham yaten. We see that the Mitzorah, it says in the pasuk, is supposed to cover his head. Mikal shachai bativat rosh. We see over there he's supposed to cover his head. Shma mina. End of story. Next piece. Avel also laniach tefillin. An avel is not allowed to wear something of tefillin. How do we know? Go back to the Yechezkel story where here you had an irregular mourning. Said, Yechezkel, go and wear your tefillin. Put that crown of the jewel of glory on your head. Miklal, and you see from there, Kuliyama for everybody else, Usr. Next, Menuda Ma'abit tefillin. Take the Gemara leaves it unresolved whether the Menuda is supposed to are not allowed to wear tefillin. Mitzorah ma'abit tefillin tashma Mitzorah l'Rabbi Kohen Gadol. Now we're going to give a bunch of details about Mitzorah, and finally we'll get back to this point about tefillin. But the question is, first, does Sarat apply to Kohen Gadol? And we said, yes, it includes the Kohen Gadol. The Gadol of Perumin, Shu Mikurayim. There's a rule that the Mitzorah is supposed to have his clothes torn, and we're going to get back to that idea. Rosha Yeh Parua. His head is supposed to be uncovered. So it sounds impriya ella gidel seir. The first opinion is that means he's supposed to leave his hair to grow and he's not supposed to cut it. That's Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Akiva Omer Nemer Havai Berosh and Rabbi Bebeged. He learned the comparison between the two different phrases that we have by the Mitzorah. One is that he's supposed to tear his clothing. The other one is something about his head. So he says it doesn't mean he's supposed to leave his head unshorn, his hair growing long. Rather, just like we're talking about something about rendering his beged is talking about something that's external to his body. So too, we're talking about his head is not talking about the hair. We're talking about external to the body. So what does that mean? Something that's on the head that's external? It must be maybe referring to tefillin. That the person who is a mitzvah is not allowed to wear tefillin. Rapapa rejects this proof. It's not a proof. What does it mean that the mitzvah leaves his head uncovered? It's not because he's not wearing tefillin. Rather, kumta v'sudra, fancy head garments hat on his head is not supposed to wear. Next, the mourner is not supposed to greet people. You have to keep quiet for the time to act very different than every other mourner. I'm sorry, to act just like every other mourner who we're learning now may not greet people. Menuda ma'u b'she'elut shalom. What about the menuda? Is he similar or dissimilar? Amar Rav Yosef tashma b'she'elut shalom. When the tzaddikim that were fasting for not having rain, they would sit and they wouldn't greet people because it was forbidden to greet people, just like the people that were in excommunication. With the same rejection we saw before. Perhaps it's a little different when there's excommunication to Hashem. We're going to be very serious and they can't even greet anybody. Mitzorah ma'u b'she'elut shalom tashma asam yatesh yesuvah. We say the Mitzorah is supposed to keep his lips closed and obviously not greet anybody. He should be similar to the excommunicated person and the mourner, and they're not allowed to greet people. Shmamina, the way it says the Gemara. We just answered the question about the Aval, and we answered very nicely what are you going to say also about the Mitzorah. But we never addressed, we didn't have any clear proof about the Menuda. But this price seems to be an obvious proof. It says the Gemara that it seems that we made a pack of the Menuda, the Mitzorah, and the Aval all together are not allowed to greet people. Answered the Gemara, Amar Rav Acha bar Pinchas, Mishmein Rav Yosef, Mi Katan Asher Shieh Ki Menuda Ki Aval Asher. Does the Bryce in fact say that it's forbidden all three of them? Rather, that's not what it means. It means Ki Menuda Ki Aval Katani. There's a comparison. All we mean to say, these people who are sitting and fasting, they're like and the mourner is the menuda and the avel. These people sitting who are fasting, they're going to be, the mitzora, who is similar to the avel and the menuda, he's not allowed to do sheila shalom, but they're only compared lamili achrinaita for other purposes and not for this. Also, nami b'sheila shalom, a new phrase is introduced in the end of the verse that the mitzora is forbidden sheila shalom, but it doesn't mean to compare them for that matter. Aval also b'divrei Torah. Moving on, the mourner cannot learn Torah. How do we know? Again, from Yechazkel Midgamer Roman Yechazkel Dom. He's supposed to keep quiet. He's not supposed to greet people, and he's also not supposed to learn Torah. And we're supposed to be similar to Yechazkel in that manner. And mourners may not learn. Menuda Ma'al B'divrei Torah. What do we say about the excommunicated person? A menuda is allowed to learn. You're allowed to teach him. Nischar and Nischar he's allowed to work, and he's allowed to be hired. He's allowed to hire others and be hired for work. Muchram, the higher level of excommunication we haven't mentioned now, but a person who was in excommunication for 30 days of nidui, menuda, and then that rolled over into a second level of menuda, and then it becomes muchram. Then we have certain more serious laws. Loshon of Loshon, he's not allowed to learn, not allowed to teach him. Lo nizcham and lo nischar, he's not allowed to work, nor work for him. Aval shonu la'atzma, he can learn privately to himself. Lo yafsik et limudo, shelo yafsik et limudo, he can continue whatever regular learning he was. Ozen lo chanus katana b'shel parnas. Also, we want to allow him to do a tiny bit of work, minimal basics, so he has food to eat. An example would be someone who's selling water in a little market in Arav, a certain place. You see from here a proof, we learn that the menuda is allowed to learn Torah. What do we say about the mitzora? Moed Katan Torah, Tashma, we have a pasuk that Hashem says we should remember what the experience of Har Sinai was. That just like over there was fear and trembling and a certain trepidation that we had at Har Sinai. So whenever we learn Torah, a person is supposed to approach Torah with that certain seriousnness. Yes, that the Zavim Mitzrayim Bo'olinido Mutar Lekro Torah Nevi'im Miksuvim. Most people who are impure and tamei, for example, the Zav, the person who has a certain mission, that's a sickness, and the Mitzora, the leper, the Bo'olinido, the person who is with the Nida, all those people, they may be impure, but yet they're allowed to learn Torah. However, the one person who's impure is forbidden to learn Torah, according to the kind of Ezra, based on this pasuk, was Bali Karyan, also someone who is a male who had an mission, that because he was not in a serious frame of mind, he's not allowed to learn Torah, because that's not an appropriate mindset to be learning Torah. Shema no. If he's from there, though, however, the Mitzora may learn Torah. Last piece over here. Also, last two halachas we want to figure. The mourner is not allowed to do cleaning his clothing, as we have a story from Yoav that Vishlach Yoav Tekoa. Yoav had a plan to get David to accept Absalom back into the palace, because Absalom killed Amnon, and he ran away for 3 years because he was afraid of that what David was going to feel. So Yoav wanted to construct some sort of plot to get Absalom back into the palace, and he did this by trying to get on the mercy of David. He got a woman from Tekoa, a wise woman who pretended that she was in mourning over her one son that killed the other brother. And she said this tragic tale to David and said, now they want to kill the murderous son because he killed his brother, and I can't bear to see the other son die. So David had Rahmanis, and then she said, okay, you see from this, the moral of the story is, just because one of the sons is a murderer doesn't mean that you shouldn't have Rahmanis on him, so too you should take back Absalom. So the way she acted, we should learn from her the way of an Avel, a mourner, a wise woman, you should pretend like you're mourning, she should wear clothing of a mourner, she shouldn't anoint herself, she should pretend she's mourning for a long time. And you see from there, there's special clothing for the mourner, meaning unlaundered clothing. Menuda mitzora mahim techbosa. What do we say about laundering for the menuda and the mitzora? Tashma menuda mitzora asur l'saper. L'chabes a beferish brisa that says black and white explicit. They may not launder the clothing. Shmami no. Evel also b'kriya. Chay b'kriya. The mourner must tear his outer garment. Because going back to the story with Aaron, when two of his children died, he told the elder children, "Lo tifromo, don't render your clothes, don't tear your clothing. Just unlike them, everybody else is supposed to tear the clothing." Menuda ma'hu, what do we say about the menuda? Teiko, not clear, and let it stand. Mitzora ma'hu b'kriya, tashma b'gadav yiprumim. We have in the pasuk that the mitzora is supposed to tear his clothing, as we mentioned earlier. We got the chart of all 14 halachas that are compared between the three people, and today we just did 7 of them. See the chart? It summarizes all the basic ideas. The Alvel is much more chomer than everybody else and has all the restrictions and obligations upon him. The mitzora is the most lenient. The menuda is somewhere in between. Then we have our compass word for today is tashma. It's usually denoted by tav shin, an acronym to mean tashma. Come in here. Come and see this proof. And we got the takeaway is the mourner with all his restrictions. We talked about 5 of them today, 2 obligations. Menuda, has some of them. Mitzora has additional restrictions like not being able to greet people.